A quiet man in worn clothes stepped into a small neighborhood diner, unnoticed by everyone around him. What no one knew was that this place belonged to him. Years earlier, he had bought the diner to honor a late friend's dream of creating a space where everyone felt welcome. Disguised as an ordinary customer, he came to understand why profits were falling despite loyal customers. From his seat at the counter, he noticed an elderly dishwasher named Walter, moving slowly but working with remarkable care. Despite visible pain, Walter never complained. He stayed late, cleaned what others ignored, and quietly helped customers who couldn't afford their meals, always using his own money. Regulars greeted him with warmth. Yet behind the counter, two younger employees mocked his kindness and whispered with unsettling intent. Over time, the owner realized something was deeply wrong. Walter's generosity was being misunderstood, and was quietly used against him. As the day unfolded, it became clear that honesty and compassion were being tested by ambition and indifference. Sitting there, unseen and unheard, the owner made a silent promise. He would uncover the full truth and protect the values his diner was built on, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. When Ethan quietly pushed open the narrow trailer door, it resisted, forcing him to lean in with effort. Inside, a single flickering bulb revealed a space so small and worn that it was hard to imagine anyone truly living there. Sitting alone in his car afterward, Ethan felt a deep wave of guilt. How had he never noticed? How had he failed to see that one of his most loyal employees had been surviving like this for years? The man, named Harold, had worked at the diner for 7 long years, yet no one knew he was living in conditions that would test even the strongest spirit. The next morning, still keeping his identity hidden, Ethan quietly asked regular customers about Harold. An elderly woman explained gently that Harold had lost his wife, Rose, to cancer 5 years earlier. They had sold everything they owned to cover medical expenses, their home, their car, their savings, after more than 5 decades together. Despite everything, Harold continued sending small payments to the hospital each month, refusing to abandon his responsibility. He had a daughter, Claire, living far away, who begged him to come live with her, but he always refused, unwilling to feel like a burden. As Ethan learned more, the truth became heavier. The trailer park Harold lived in was scheduled for demolition, and residents had only weeks to relocate. With rising rent prices, Harold had nowhere to go. Yet he told no one, choosing dignity over pity. To the people at the diner, Harold wasn't just an employee, he was family. Helping others gave his life purpose, even when he had so little himself. That realization changed everything for Ethan. He understood that doing nothing was no longer an option. By dawn, he had made several quiet decisions, determined to protect a good man and restore the values his diner was built on: respect, fairness, and humanity. During the lunch rush, the diner was buzzing with quiet routines and familiar faces. Elias, the elderly dishwasher, worked steadily near the sink, his movements slow but precise, shaped by years of hard labor and quiet resilience. Despite the pain in his joints, he never complained. He simply did his job with dignity. At the front counter, 2 younger employees, Mark and Lily, appeared busy and efficient. But behind polite smiles, they were carefully manipulating transactions, miscounting small amounts of change, canceling valid orders after customers left, and creating subtle discrepancies in the register. Their actions were calculated, repeated, and deliberate. From a corner booth, Noah observed everything in silence. Late in the morning, a young mother named Anna entered the diner with her 5-year-old daughter, Emily. Their clothes were simple but clean, showing signs of careful mending rather than neglect. Anna worked 2 jobs and was raising her child alone. That day, she was short on cash. When it came time to pay, her face fell. She quietly explained that she was missing a small amount and offered to work to make up the difference. Lily responded coldly, dismissing her without compassion. Elias had seen enough. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and paid the remaining balance from his own pocket. He smiled gently and told Anna that kindness had a way of returning when least expected. Grateful and emotional, Anna left with her daughter, her dignity preserved. Moments later, Mark raised an alarm, loudly claiming that money was missing from the register. Lily immediately supported the accusation, subtly pointing fingers toward Elias. With no working cameras, or so they claimed, the situation escalated quickly. Management confronted Elias. Though clearly shocked and hurt, he didn't argue. He simply stated the truth. He had only added money, never taken it. Still, policy was cited, and he was asked to leave. That's when Noah stood up, no longer hiding in plain sight. He introduced himself as the founder of the diner chain. Calmly, he explained that new security systems had recently been installed, fully functional, discreet, and recording everything. The footage told the real story. Mark and Lily were clearly shown manipulating the register, while Elias was seen quietly helping customers and even staying late to clean. The truth was undeniable. Authorities were notified, and the responsible parties were removed according to procedure. The atmosphere in the diner shifted, from tension to reflection. Noah turned to Elias and addressed everyone present. This restaurant was built on respect, integrity, and compassion, he said. And this man represents everything we stand for. Silence filled the room. In the end, the lesson was clear. Character matters more than position, and kindness, though often quiet, has a way of revealing the truth. His eyes were filled with quiet tears, yet his posture remained calm and dignified after everything he had just endured. "Samuel," said Ethan Carter, his voice noticeably softer now, "I owe you far more than an apology. I owe you 7 years of loyalty, hard work, and dedication that went unseen. Starting today, I want to make things right." Samuel lifted his head. His gaze was clear, free of anger or resentment. "There's no need to apologize, sir," he replied gently. "You didn't know what was happening, and you couldn't have known." "That may be true," Ethan answered firmly, "but from this moment forward, everyone will know who you truly are." The small diner suddenly filled with applause. Customers stood from their seats, clapping for the elderly man who had quietly touched their lives for years through simple acts of kindness, acts many remembered, even if Samuel never spoke of them himself. The next morning, Riverside Diner opened as usual, but the atmosphere had completely changed. News of the owner's undercover visit and the exposure of dishonest staff had spread through the entire town. People arrived early, not for gossip, but to show support for Samuel. Ethan arrived dressed simply, no longer hiding behind status or distance. He wanted it to be clear. He was present now, involved, and deeply committed to every person who worked there. Samuel arrived on time, as always. He seemed overwhelmed as customers greeted him by name, offering warm smiles and words of encouragement. "Samuel," Ethan called, motioning toward the back office. "May I speak with you privately for a moment?" The diner fell silent. Everyone understood that this conversation would change Samuel's future. Inside the modest office, Ethan invited him to sit. "I spent the entire night reflecting," he said, "on your character, your loyalty, and how far my business had drifted from its original values." Samuel folded his hands calmly. "This job saved me," he said quietly. "When no one else would give me a chance, this place did." "That's exactly why this matters," Ethan replied. "You've done the work of several people for 7 years, never complaining, always giving more than expected." He slid a folder across the desk. "This isn't a reward. It's recognition." Samuel opened it slowly. His hand trembled as he read the contents again and again. Effective immediately, Ethan continued, smiling, "You are promoted to floor manager. The position includes better hours, full benefits, and a salary that reflects your true value." Samuel shook his head in disbelief. "I've never managed anyone." "You manage something far more important," Ethan said. "You lead with integrity and compassion. Skills can be taught. Character cannot." Then Ethan handed him a second folder. "I contacted your daughter, Laura, last night," he said gently. Samuel's face paled. "She knows everything now," Ethan continued softly. "And she wanted you to know that love is never a burden." Inside the folder was a deed to a small, well-kept house near the diner. "No rent, no payments. It's yours," Ethan said. 7 years of dedication, finally returned. Tears streamed down Samuel's face as Ethan added one final truth. Your late wife's remaining medical bills have been fully paid. You owe nothing. Samuel could barely speak. Why? He whispered. Because you reminded me, Ethan replied, holding back his own emotion, that a business is about people, not numbers. When they returned to the dining room together, applause erupted once more. A young mother stepped forward with her child, offering a small jar of donations. Ethan raised his hand. Instead, let's create the Samuel Community Fund to help others facing hardship. The idea was met with overwhelming support. In the months that followed, Samuel settled into his new role and his new home. He continued working not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The diner became a place where kindness mattered as much as success. And every morning, Samuel arrived early, greeted by name, respected not for his title, but for the quiet goodness that changed an entire community. The seasons passed, and Riverside Diner became more than just a restaurant. It became a refuge. Every morning, before the sun even touched the fogged-up windows, Samuel arrived. He unlocked the door with the same care he always had, but now there was a new calm in his steps. The pain was still there, hidden in his knees and shoulders, but it no longer defined his days. He greeted every employee by name. He asked about their families, remembered the small details, a sick child, an important exam, an elderly parent in need. This wasn't a management technique. It was simply who Samuel was. Ethan changed too. He no longer stayed distant in offices or buried in financial reports. Several times a week, he sat quietly in a corner of the diner, watching and listening. He finally understood that this place breathed because of the people who worked there, not because of the numbers on a spreadsheet. One afternoon, a young waitress named Maya broke down in tears during her break. Samuel found her sitting behind the building, perched on an empty crate. "Talk to me," he said gently. She confessed that she had been sleeping in her car for 2 weeks. Her partner had thrown her out, and she had no one left to ask for help. Years ago, Samuel would have quietly slipped a few bills into her hand. This time, he did something different. He walked into Ethan's office and calmly explained the situation, without anger, without blame. The very next day, the Samuel Community Fund fulfilled the purpose it was created for. Maya received temporary housing, then stability. She never left the diner. Slowly, more stories like hers came to light. Not because people were seeking money, but because they knew that here, they would be heard without shame. Riverside Diner's reputation spread far beyond the town. Articles were written. Journalists called. Ethan declined most interviews. "This isn't a branding story," he would say. "It's a human one." One winter evening, as snow fell softly outside, Samuel stayed late after closing. He wiped down the counter, just as he had done thousands of times before. Ethan entered quietly. "You could go home," Ethan said. "No one would blame you." Samuel smiled. "I know, but I like ending the day here. It reminds me why I'm still standing." Ethan hesitated, then asked the question he had carried for a long time. "Why did you never say anything, Samuel, about your situation or the injustices?" Samuel set the cloth down and thought for a long moment. "Because anger is more exhausting than poverty," he said softly, "and because I still believe that goodness would eventually be seen." Ethan felt his throat tighten. In the years that followed, Samuel trained new managers, not with manuals, but by example. Some came to learn a job. They left having learned something deeper: patience, empathy, responsibility. One morning, an envelope arrived at the diner. It was from Claire, Samuel's daughter. She wrote that she was proud of her father, that she finally understood why he had refused to leave, and that she wanted to move back to live near him. Samuel read the letter sitting at the same table where, years earlier, he had eaten alone during his breaks. He cried for a long time, but this time, not from sadness. When Claire arrived a few weeks later, the entire diner welcomed her as if she had always belonged. Samuel watched her talk with customers, laugh with the staff, and in that moment, he understood something essential. He had never been invisible. He had simply been quiet. On Samuel's 75th birthday, Ethan closed the diner early. The lights went out, then suddenly came back on. The room was full. Customers, employees, former co-workers, neighbors, everyone was there. On the wall, a simple message. Quiet kindness can change the world. Samuel stood frozen. All this, for me, he whispered. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. Not for you, he said. For what you taught us. Samuel spoke, his voice trembling but steady. I never tried to be an example. I only tried to be fair, even when no one was watching. Silence filled the room. And in that silence, everyone understood that the greatest transformations don't come from shouting, but from consistent, humble actions. Riverside Diner continued to thrive. But more importantly, it continued to care. And every morning, when Samuel unlocked the door, he smiled, remembering one simple truth. Kindness makes no noise, but it leaves an eternal mark.